Welcome to the Jumping Bean Magic Collective podcast. I'm Linda Lewis, founder of the collective, here with my co-host, Heather Manwaring. We started this podcast to dive deep into the creative experience. We explore themes related to the creative path and showcase other creators' journeys. If you want to know more about the collective and our mission of connecting creatives with meaningful work, please check out our website and follow us on Instagram. We'd love to connect with you.
Hello. Today's podcast. What a week we've had, huh?
Mm-hmm. So Heather and I are together in real life, and we have had a normal week for me, other than my husband being out of town.
And having a camera in your face all week.
I don't mind that though. That's all right.
Okay.
Or it doesn't really affect me all that much. But as everyone knows, I have a 2.5-year-old, and mom life is chaotic. You know, anybody who has small children, especially very wild and free small children, which I think most small children are or should be, knows that life is extremely unpredictable. And it's something that as a creative is both natural, because we all kind of have that wild, disorganized side, I think, as creatives, almost all of us do. But we also have a lot of need for creation and for intentional creation. And with small children, time becomes incredibly scarce and energy becomes incredibly scarce to be able to do things like this.
Exactly.
So, it's late at night-ish. It's not too bad tonight.
And then an hour and a half tops of
actual
downtime. And
yeah, and that is the standard, I think, for most parents. And this is not the only form of chaos that people deal with either, right? If you're caring for any loved one, literally parents, if you have people with other illness challenges, or a lot of people are caretakers, and caretaking creates a lot of chaos. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about tonight, because it's very fresh on our mind.
We're both sitting here exhausted.
Yes.
But also wanting to create.
Yes.
And
yes. And how do you do that when life is not predictable, when you don't get big chunks of time? Like I used to have, pre-baby, pre-being married, lots of, long kind of lazy or, stretched out weekends, they felt like, where I could just spend all day doing whatever I wanted, sleeping or creating or combo of the two.
Totally.
And getting enough sun, getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, and taking care of myself, and then having kind of leftover resources to create and write and paint and do all the things that I love to do. So you can tell me, because you are fresh to the chaos.
This is a whole different kind of chaos. I am accustomed to emotional chaos and dealing with internal stuff and that kind of stuff. But I have felt so I can still have my time.
Yeah.
And this is the week where I'm just oh my God, I have no time. And when I do have time, I am exhausted. I am sitting down on my computer because I'm forcing myself to, because I need to, but not because I'm inspired or reason to do it. I have to do it. And so, I came in with all these ideas of I'll have at least 2 to 3 hour chunks of time. Nope. And it's just, when I'm under-resourced, how do I create that for myself, or kind of into the mode where I'm I am under-resourced and I have to do it anyway, and I think that that's something that I have not done, where I've had maybe time resource, but I've been oh, I don't feel like it, or I'm tired, or I kind of make excuses. And this is my attention is on Celine and on you and what's needed. And so it's I haven't had that time abundance, but I can't make any more excuses. And I think that's new for me. to a certain degree. Or I'm like, usually I'm like, oh, I need like time for myself, and I need this, and I need that, and it's just, you just have to make do. Like, you just have to make do and just fucking do it. And I'm actually really grateful for that, because I guess I'm really getting a taste of what's really required to be a mother and a creative. There's this book I read very, very early in my life. I think I was probably 16 or something. And it's called The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer. And I loved her invitation. Like, it was like one of the first things that I read as a kid, and it felt like she was speaking to my soul. Like, it was such a beautiful remembrance. And one of the lines she said in the invitation is something like, can you still do what needs to be done even when you're bone tired, to do what needs to be done to feed the children? And there's something in that where I'm like, I don't understand what that means, and I feel like I just got a taste of what that means. You know.
And one of the children is our need for creativity.
Yes.
And there's this strange thing that happens when you become a mother, like specifically, where, and I know I'm not alone in this, where like you actually have a ton of creative energy.
Yes.
And you have a ton of ideas and visions of things you want to do and projects you want to create. And for me, it's been exceedingly frustrating that I do not have the time to bring those to life.
Yeah.
And feel like I should have the time to bring those to life, but also recognize that with the quality of mothering I want to do, I just don't.
Yeah.
And
she is your ultimate creation.
Yeah. And I have to like really honor the fact that you can only spin so many plates at one time. Doing things in tiny little snippets has always been frustrating to me. I've always been a master procrastinator, for better or worse. Like, for worse is, of course, just putting things off until you have a time crunch, and then you can no longer make things perfect.
Totally.
And that's your reason for things.
Surrender to it and get it done.
Yeah, that's the reason for it not being perfect, is you didn't have the time.
Yeah.
For better is actually like waiting for the wave, like being the surfer, waiting for the wave to like, the vision to kind of ripen and your skills to be aligned with the vision. And then you ride the wave in and you can create the whole thing. Right.
Yeah.
And so those have been like my ways of creating, like either by force and procrastination.
Yeah.
Or by kind of waiting out the timing and then, oh, it's here and I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how Jumping Bean got started, was like, okay, it's here. I'm going to just go with this thing. But with motherhood, you've got to do things in like really crazy tiny snippets. And
I mean, I feel like that was like lesson 101 you taught me when I first got here, was like, you can't wait for an hour long stint. I brought some work, for my job, which is product photography. And, where I'm like, oh, I just need an hour. But it's like, nope, you have to
5 minutes.
Do a 5-minute thing and like do one product with, maybe you get 10 shots and then we're done until the next 10-minute spurt. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was harder to get used to. So,
and it's still, and I continue to have to get used to it, where you're kind of raising all boats at the same time. Like, you're doing a tiny bit over here and a tiny bit over here and a tiny bit over here, and whatever you can do on your phone while your kid's distracted, or like while she's with her dad, or, whatever, or late at night and you have an idea and you need to write it down. My notes app is like where my chaos lives. Because I have to create chaos. Yeah, because I have to keep track of so many things that are on my mind at once. And it's a place that my toddler can't come grab the notebook and run away with it and I'll never see it again. Or like, right. Like, I kind of
tear a page out and be like, what?
Yeah. And realizing, for this season of life, I did not bring my easel. I did not bring paints. Like, there are just certain types of creativity that are not going to, certain mediums, that are not going to work with this season of life. Right. Like, I could not have a painting out in this house.
Right. No, you cannot.
There would be a paint disaster.
Yes.
And, it's just recognizing what your capacity is, but also that that creativity is a need. And so it doesn't come after all the other needs are met, because then it would never happen.
It would never happen.
So it might mean that you don't shower today, but you get a page of the book written. Or it might mean that you don't meal prep for tomorrow, but you get a little bit of podcast recorded. Or and that can be really frustrating coming from someone who spent so many years, in a lot of free time for myself, or a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't working, I was pretty much alone and able to focus on whatever I wanted to focus on for hours at a time. And I was even frustrated then by I gotta feed myself, and I gotta get enough sleep, and I gotta exercise. Being a human being just has a lot of needs.
It takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work. And so adding what feels like sometimes extra in terms of creativity, or creating something tangible, feels like extra. But if you don't, if you abandon that thing and say, well, I don't have capacity, or I'm just too busy, or there's too much chaos in my life, then part of you dies.
But then you die.
Yeah.
And it eats you alive.
Yeah.
And then you're like, why am I so sick and miserable?
And usually, something will bring you down back to a place where you can't do anything else.
Totally.
And that's kind of what happened with my pregnancy, was getting really, really sick. I had HG and throwing up incessantly if I wasn't horizontal. And so I had to come up with something that I could do horizontal that wasn't just watching TV. I just got so bored, and you start feeling kind of sick of TV in itself. And I picked up knitting in those moments.
I love that.
And that wasn't something that I was super drawn to before, and I don't have time for it now, but it'll come back, I'm sure. But you got to find an outlet. If you're creative, you've got to find an outlet. And I think a lot of people kind of stifle it because of all these other needs.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can.
Yeah.
And do well.
Yeah. At least consciously.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can, it's very easy to suppress that.
Yeah.
And not make space for it and not realize it's a need. Yeah. I think you were the first person who really made that clear to me, where it really did feel like such a luxury. It's oh, if I have time, or if it would be nice if I have money for that. Right.
Yeah. Or if I can take a class and get the skills.
Right.
Or if, all the kind of preferences.
Yeah. Or creativity doesn't make money. So it's a luxury, that's kind of how I saw it. And then when you made a post about how creation is a need, and it just resounded in my being, and I was like, oh, because that is a huge shift into how I relate to it, right? Because it's if it's a luxury, then it's but now it's oh, I need it. My soul, my body, everything in me needs that. So then it's okay, well then now what do I have to do in order to meet that need? And even if it's not how exactly I want to meet it, how do I at least meet it a little bit? And I think that's huge, actually, in the way that you relate to that and honor that. And maybe it doesn't even make sense, right? Some of the inner child stuff, when it comes back out, is oh, I just want to, I had a client who, she was all I want to do is go on the beach and pick up shells.
Great.
Seashells. Amazing. She's but what do I do with it? I'm nothing. You just enjoy it. And so it's I think a lot of people too judge how the creativity comes, or what it looks like. But that's what gets in the way of you meeting that need.
Yes. One thing that came up while you're speaking is that a lot of moms specifically channel this into doing more for their kids And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, if it is feeling fulfilling to do like elaborate birthday parties and elaborate Halloween costumes,
Yeah.
and making your child's childhood as magical and Pinteresty as you want, like, that's awesome. That's not how I want to channel my creativity. It just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
But for some people, that is enough of a creation outlet, and I respect it because it kind of like keeps some of the attention just in the family, and like it's just on your kids while they're little, and like doing that kind of thing. For people who are doing that but it doesn't feel fulfilling, like, I want to give people permission to dial back on that and take some of that back for themselves and channel it into a different sort of medium, whatever that is. Right? Knitting while you're watching TV with your husband, like, starting a podcast with a friend. Like, this is not the easiest lift, but
Nope.
but like doing, starting a little painting series. I saw somebody that I used to work with was doing little 4x4 watercolors. Like, it's very manageable. Like, it's very easy to like take out and put away. And she's got young children. I love seeing that when people kind of like take bite-size amount, because that's what because if you are a caretaker, if you have any sort of chaos going on in your life, and I'll say almost all of us do.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not the human condition.
Well, maybe not, but if you have any sort of chaos going on in your life, like, sometimes you just have to start with the bite-size of creation and not wait for the budget, the class, all the other perfect, the conditions to be just right.
Yes.
It's like waiting for just the right weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as a more of a veteran in this, like, what's one of the things that you have like appreciated the most about like figuring out how to raise a child the way that you want to and be your like big brilliant CEO empire building self? Like, I want to know, like, okay, wait, I want to know one thing you deeply appreciate and then like the thing that you struggle most with.
I mean, I think I struggle most with just focusing on the lack of time versus focusing on what I am creating little bit by little bit, right? Like, focusing on, hey, this is our second podcast we recorded this week. Like, that's big progress for how much chaos there was this week. Yes, right?
And how many good photos we got.
So many good photos. Right. So like just having the appreciation in the right place, I think, is a thing that I'm in constant struggle with, instead of focusing on like still being frustrated that I don't have the chunks of time I want to create. And then the appreciation part is like, I am getting to raise my daughter the way I want to. I do have choice. A lot of people do not have choice. There's a lot of single parents. There's a lot of people who absolutely cannot survive on one income. And I super appreciate that we are. And so even though like my ambitions are somewhat sidelined at this moment in time, these moments with my daughter are irreplaceable and can't be done more than once. Even I've been here every day. I've never been away from her longer than 8 hours, and every night and every bedtime, and they all run together. So like, I know that even in a few years, I won't remember these individual weeks of chaos. I'm going to remember really precious moments and themes and the feeling states a little bit, the feelings of frustration and the feelings of, am I doing this right? Or all the kind of universal things that moms deal with.
Like her tantruming. She didn't want to get out of the car seat or take family photos.
Yeah, and things will be funny. Still, they're funny now.
I'm literally laughing looking at these photos.
Yeah. But I think on the whole, like most parents have a hard time remembering the individual moments with their kids. They meld together.
Yeah.
Because you are in somewhat of a survival timeline. It's not so much that you're in fight or flight all the time, although you have days where you feel like you are, but you are in a perpetual state of need. Either you're really needing something, or your child's really needing something, or your partner's really needing something, and there's that never turns off. And so there's a lot of just like kind of inherent stress with that.
Yeah.
And I think almost any engaged parent feels that.
Totally.
And even disengaged parents, the reason they disengaged was probably because they couldn't handle feeling that every single day.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, you know? And I think, obviously, not that I didn't believe you when you said, oh, it's just so much. But like being here, it's like, oh, it's so much. It's so much. And it's like you eat breakfast and then you play it for a tiny little, what feels like a tiny chunk of time. And all of a sudden it's lunchtime again. And then,
yes.
And then it's just, and then your day's gone.
Yes.
And you're like, what?
Yes.
What? We just ate and played.
Yes.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And
then you go like, oh, my kid didn't get any fiber today. My kid didn't get any like of this kind of vitamin. My kid didn't get enough outside time. Yeah. Okay, I guess we'll try to do better tomorrow. Like that's what you do.
Because we rinse, repeat.
Yeah. And before you know it, years have flown by, and like, yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But anybody who's in any caretaking role, I think, will feel that way, because just caring for our bodies is a very full-time job.
Yes.
To do it well.
Yes. Yeah.
And then if you have anything that you're digging out of, if there's any disease or, injury or deficit, like it's even more so.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who's not been in touch with their creativity through a chaotic season and is really feeling that loss or that absence?
Oh, wow. I'm like trying to feel into that because like I feel very connected to my creativity, thankfully, but I'm trying to put myself in a shoe of, honestly, the thing that comes to mind is like to really see yourself through gentle eyes, like through very loving, gentle eyes. Because at the end of the day, like there's only so much we can do without completely running ourselves fully ragged. Actually, I think I've said that to you a few times of like, you deserve grace. Like,
yeah,
you deserve more grace. You can only do so much in one 24-hour cycle.
Yeah.
And sleep and eat and move your body and,
Yeah.
And so I think that would be the thing is like, be gentle, like not be easy where you're like, okay, never, like it doesn't matter, it's fine, but in a way where it's like, I know this is important, like I know, and we didn't get to it today, but let's try again tomorrow, or just that kind of gentle, loving what you're dealing with, and like the reality of this is just what I could do today, and it's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think over time I've softened into that some. I'm not fully there, but 2.5 years, like you get tired of your own frustration over time.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I have created a lot and I'm chipping away at it and I'm, just doing my damnedest with the curveballs that get thrown in life. And I can do, 5 minutes. It's kind of like with movement too. Just giving my body a little bit of movement for 5 minutes. Just getting outside for a morning walk with my kid for 10 minutes, those things count and they make a difference.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if this is, but I really want to bring this in too, is like your daughter is fucking amazing. I think this is the other thing I would say too, is like creativity can show up in so many different ways, right? So it's like, I look at your daughter and I look at you as a mother and like how you care for her and love her and create. I mean, like you quite literally are creating a space and an environment for her where she is safe and there's like what feels like an entire world of permission for her to be herself exactly as she is, and she's loved and well cared for, and like that is not that's not just not nothing, it's fucking everything.
Oh.
And I think too, while it's important, I think a lot of people think of creativity as like, oh, it looks like this and it only looks like this and it looks like a painting, or it look, and I really think you have to look at what you are creating in your life from a bigger lens
Yeah.
too, and a more creative lens of like, oh, I am creating this relationship. I am creating space for, my daughter to flourish and to know what it is to be securely loved. I'm creating this thing inside of myself, right? Or that. So I think it's a lot broader than most people.
For sure. And I think that I've had to I'm still working with that paradigm, right? Because I am really someone who wants a tangible outcome, even though my daughter is extremely tangible.
She's so tangible, but tangible.
But at the same time, I don't take credit for who she is either, right? And so, like, I feel like it's my responsibility, it's my duty, it's my commitment to create that environment and to give her everything she needs. And I also find it my responsibility to give her a fulfilled mom, like give her a mom who feels really fulfilled, is like
nourished.
Yeah, like really nourished in all the ways, right? Like really well fed, really well cared for, really well loved, and also really, really expressed, really fully expressed.
Yes. And she is.
Yeah. And so like I want that. I want her to see that, and I want her to be able to have an example of that.
Right.
And it's beautiful. It also doesn't need to be today. I mean, I get impatient, as we all do, but it doesn't need to be, she's still extremely young. So it doesn't need to be finished product today, or, because anything that I do takes me away from her or takes me away from my body too, right? So like you choose between doing these podcasts and sleeping, and there are going to be times when I'm like, I have to choose sleep.
Yes.
Yeah, but thank you for that reflection.
Yeah. No, it's been amazing to watch.
I am not unique in my comparison with others, in my wishing that I could do more with less help, thinking that other people can do it all more easily. Like we all have these ideas. And I think I just saw something yesterday or today that was like, if you have toddlers, like, this is not your time to thrive. I was like, that is so true. Factual.
It's just speaking from experience. Yeah. And I can see why. It's like, I really see it. Yeah. Where it's like, oh, there's just nothing else.
Yeah. Like, and there will be less for her and take more time for me. I mean, I could have put her in daycare. I could have, and like, there's no judgments on people who feel right with, right? But like, it's not felt right for me. We're in a foreign country. We left just under a year ago. Like, there's been a lot of transition, and she is a very high sensitivity and like high needs in a good way, like high needs toddler.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't felt great for me to like put her somewhere else, or put her in front of a screen for any extended period of time. Like, she's just very easily affected by any of those influences. So just doesn't leave a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was something else that came up. I think like just we've talked about this in our beginnings podcast, but letting things be like really rough, really short and really rough, like jotting down ideas and skeletons for things, and like screen grabbing notes of things and pictures of things, and like letting the chaos bleed into your creative life too. Like, I have so many just like partly thought about and partly fleshed out ideas that I hope someday I'll get to see through.
Yeah.
Right. But I may not be able to really build those and see them through while I have a young child. But like not letting those things just leave and say, oh, I don't have time. But like really capturing, we're all on our phones enough. But like somehow my screen time adds up to like multiple hours a day. And I'm like, how? Like some of that's like GPS or like me leaving it open or
New York Times
recipes. Like a lot of it's very functional, but my shopping list, I also am like, how have I spent this many hours this week on my phone?
Yeah.
A lot of it is scrolling. A lot of it is reading. A lot of it is
ratchet on threads.
getting ratchet on threads. I have to get ratchet. So, but like even those hours don't add up to much, but that's enough time to write a little something, or that's enough time to start a Pinterest board, like kind of figuring out the essence of who you are or like what wants to come through.
Yeah.
I just encourage people who are like, I don't have any time at all, and I get it. I feel that on like a really very regular basis.
Yeah.
To be like, but instead of opening Instagram, I'm going to spend 5 minutes just jotting down ideas, or even making yourself a voice note. Like if you don't have the energy to write or type or stare at a screen, you can literally just open a voice note and leave yourself a memo. I used to do that while I was driving to work. Like, I have like hours of like transcribed exercises and things that I would do to like mantras, like all kinds of things that I would play with over a voice memo. It's just like a treasure trove of ideas that I can come back to at some point.
Yeah. I think this is why I want a studio so bad for my art, because like sometimes I just want to do a couple strokes.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do or have time to do.
Yeah.
But like it's not out. And so for me to actually just do a couple strokes would be quite an endeavor. Right. It's like I have to pull it out and then I have to put that. So I'm like, I think part of why I want a separate space just for my art is to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Just walk in there, do a little boop, 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 and then do something else, or go back to whatever.
And it does make a difference. I mean, we've got our little gym and room that we're in, and like, I will jump on the Pilates machine for 5 to 10 minutes sometimes. And, those moments count. And it's the same thing with being able to create like that. But I will say too, time yourself getting your supplies out and putting them away, because you might
just be an idea in my head.
Yeah, it might actually only be like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
that's a good idea.
You might have another 10 minutes and you have painting, and like we make things barriers that aren't actually barriers.
A lot. True. That's a really good point.
That is a really good point. But I mean, I'm just speaking from my own experience, because I have a lot of excuses too, or a lot of like barriers to creating everything that I want to create in my life.
Yeah. So you're like, I see through that one.
Yeah. It's the same thing with like money for supplies. Like we, as a culture, a Western culture, are awash in supplies. Like you can get supplies for like really cheap, really fucking cheap. Like you can put, because everybody's got like crates of shit they don't use anymore in their basement. Like you can put a call out and say, hey, I'm really wanting to get into fill in the blank knitting. Who has yarn for me? Yeah. Oh, grandma has a box I haven't opened in 3 years. You can have it. Just come pick it up. Like you will find someone. And, I just moved out of the country. I gave a ton of my painting supplies to Heather. So you'll find people like that will be happy to give you supplies. So just don't use those things as barriers for entry, and like reach out to us. Like we always have ideas of like how to get started, someone you can contact to help you get started. I really want to start a mentorship program in Jumping Bean to like match people who are just getting started in a new discipline or just out of school or like teenagers that just like want to know what a career is like. Everybody's really willing to give time and expertise if you ask. And supplies. It's really true. And software. I remember somebody, like, I had people give me genius hacker friends, like in college, where I had like a bootleg copy of like Creative Suite. I had a bootleg copy of AutoCAD, and like I don't think you can even do any of that anymore. But like, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm sure someone
not encouraging stealing, but if you really can't afford something, or you're really motivated to do something,
you will find a way. Yes. Can I what has it been like for you finding time for your relationship? Like, because you've written quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm 10,000 words in.
So like, where and when did that happen? Because I'm a little bit shooketh. I'm like, wait, but it is, you have how many words?
It is in these moments. Like, I do have a caretaker for Celine 2 days a week, but like, that sounds luxurious even to me. Like, oh, that's 16 hours a week. I maybe get to use 2 of those hours for creation.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's on a good week.
Yeah.
Because something comes up, I have an appointment, I have to book travel plans, or like to deal with insurance stuff, or like just other family admin stuff, because anyone who's a stay-at-home mom knows that they are the project manager, the travel agent. I washed my daughter and my hair today, and how long did that take?
Forever.
Like 2.5 hours of my day,
at least.
It's like just our hair, and I have to do that once a week.
Yes.
So those 16 hours are also meal planning, or all my shopping, like trying to catch up on rest, or like this week I broke down and ordered a new dryer. Like, that took research. So like, there's really, out of that time, usually, like I said, 2 hours is like good. But I will use those 2 hours for my relationship course. And I will write in the middle of the night if I have to, because I have like terrible insomnia from my child not sleeping. Like, 3 a.m. I have ideas. Like, I'll at least make outlines, or like add chapters, or that kind of thing. And weekends, like, I'll, ask my husband to take her to the park for an hour so I can like write a chapter. And then it's nighttime, like now. It's like she's gone to bed, and I somehow have the energy to like do a little bit of writing. But 10,000 words is over. When did I start that? June? July?
Yeah, I feel like it was recent.
But that's not even recent anymore. It's like 5 months ago.
That still feels recent for 10,000 words. I feel like, honestly, it feels like we were just talking about it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have some words. I'm like, excuse me?
I hope that the rest goes as smoothly. It feels like this relationship course feels very, very natural for me to write. So
you've embodied. You're like all the way through it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a huge lift, but some of the little snippets that I've had to do to prep, just to give people an idea. So like, this relationship course is going to be a year-long course for single women, and basically it'll be self-guided. There will be videos and lessons. So probably somewhere between 25 and 28 lessons. And you'll, write and read and like sit with each lesson for at least a week, but like, it's self-paced. So it's however long you want to sit with each lesson. And it's really like a book, like I'm writing a whole book. Yeah. And then it might end up as a book.
Probably.
But I already coached a relationship course 6-month container. It was 20, few years ago. Right? So I have all the transcripts. So I like took one of the like steps that was like painstaking, but I would like do a tiny bit whenever I could, like when I had admin time, was like take all my Zoom videos from those coaching calls and upload them to a transcriber.
Oh, wow.
And then get all those scripts, and like I still have them like in my chaos notes, my notes app, and then like editing those. So just like pulling out all the stuff that like I'm not sharing, like anything my client said, like what I'm looking for in all of those scripts. I was like, what did I say that had meaning and was worth capturing, so that I can use those in the chapters. And like have already done some of that writing.
Right.
So that's like kind of almost busy work that I can do on the go that doesn't take as much like creative thinking and focus as actually writing the chapters, but just going through and like finding the nuggets in those transcripts.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then another step to that will be, I have all my journals
from like when you were going through it.
That box over there,
Oh my God,
is like, I just shipped them over. There's like probably 30 journals or something from like,
are you like going
from when I was like 7 on.
Oh my God. Oh, amazing.
And I was like, you know, totally love addicted and boy crazy and all of that, starting at those ages.
At 7.
Yeah. So like, just I'll be going through probably most of it, whatever I can stomach. It's going to be hard. So that is so hard to read.
Oh, back to your journals at like when you're 14, 15, 16 are just so cringe.
It's so cringe. It hurts. It's like stomach turning.
Yeah.
But going back through those and doing the same thing, like looking for the reverse engineering of what I did to kind of like purge myself of my relationship garbage.
Yeah.
And
create a beautiful, healthy relationship with a child.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is one of my creative projects right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I didn't know some of that, like the transcriptions and.
Yeah, I'm one of these people though that like I am a crazy thorough creative, like, and
you're really good at systems.
Yeah, that's kind of my jam too.
Yeah,
like I'm like, it's painful for me though sometimes because I see that people can just like do big paintings of like one subject and whip them out in 30 minutes and like that's their creation, and I'm like, it's fun.
Like you wish
I'm
you
like,
could just.
yeah, I'm like researching and like just in the like depths of finances.
Yeah,
like I like go all the way in because you do tell any of these things that I work on, but
yeah,
it's okay. That's who I am.
No, and it's fantastic. Like I definitely don't have the capacity that you have for that. I am more of the like, I just am gonna like whip something together. And
well, you do have your systems for photography.
No, that's true. But like thinking of like, I had just started my job, so there's so many new things going on. I'm like, talk about chaos, where like all the new things are happening. I don't know anybody. I don't know what anything is.
I mean, that's a great thing to bring up. Is like anything that's really new in your life, like you got a new pet, you have a new job, you move. Yes. Like those are massive chaos inflection points.
Oh,
where like, and they're a little more temporary than something. I mean, pets can be chaos forever, but like those are a little more temporary, where you're gonna get used to them and your capacity will grow, and like you won't feel like as much chaos, and then you can like adjust. But some of those, like,
yeah. So I was like, it was just pure chaos for the first, I don't know, month, really. But anyway, so I had going to a birthday party, and I was like, I'm gonna do a painting for my brother. And like I kind of get this, you know, I have like certain bits of who he is and what he is drawn to and what he likes, studying his art, blah blah blah. So I created this thing that's very not, I mean, still in my style, but it's like really, really not how I normally create. But anyway, I did it in like maybe 3 hours, 4 hours tops. And, you know, I give it to him and he's like, oh my God, like, how long did you spend on this thing? And I was like, oh, I painted it yesterday. He's like, don't tell me that. But you know, we're like, sometimes I'm like grateful for that ability that I have to just like, I have this amount of time.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna put something together.
Yeah.
And it's still
same mentality, right?
Like, yes. Because I was like, oh, like ideally I would have spent more time. I would have drawn it out and like, done little bits at a time. But I was like, this is just what I have available with starting a new job and like all this stuff going on. This is what I have.
Yeah.
And, and then he was like, oh, I love it. So, but it was just so funny. He's like, oh, and I think that I do think too, like we put more value on things that took forever or like that,
Yeah.
And,
but if you have mastery, it's like, I wish I knew how much actual time I have into this relationship, of course, because when you really have mastery of what you're doing, it doesn't take that much time, but you're not seeing all of the thousands of hours prior that were put in. And that, we talk about this a lot. Like, you can't compare yourself to someone who does have thousands of hours of backlog and be like, oh, they're producing at such a rapid rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to start slow. You got to start where you can, put one sentence down at a time.
Yeah.
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 Especially with something like writing or painting. Like, you got to have a history with it. You can't just.
That's true. I think that happens with writing too. Like, I'll just like write a post or like write something, and then my friend will be like, you literally just wrote that in 5 minutes? I'm like, yeah. She's like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, this looks so good.
Yeah.
I'm like,
because
oh,
you have that.
But I've written my whole goddamn life. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. Where you can just write the thing and it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah.
But that took tons of practice.
Yeah. Learning to articulate all the countless hours of like that internal searching and learning how to express certain things and get out of your own way and like blah, blah, blah. It's like all the things. So that's true.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay. What should we tell everyone about jumping bean? I think what comes up while we were talking about chaos is like, jumping bean is not a place where you have to feel obligated to spend a lot more time. It's more like it's like a support group. Like, it's an artist support group and a place that you can also find work and support each other through your skills. So people bring in their own projects to say like, hey, I really need a copy editor on this thing, or I really need a musician for this thing, or I really need, an illustrator. Mm-hmm. It's not another obligation. And that's such a really fine line, because of course I want people to participate. I want people to,
get value out of it.
Yeah, get value out of it and get to know each other and things like that in the community. But it's not a place that you have to feel like you are missing out if you don't have time to dedicate, because it's more of like a support engine behind what we're all doing.
I love that. I think that's really true. That feels really accurate, because like I guess it never felt like something I had to do. Like, it just was like, oh, I'm here investing for whatever this thing becomes. And you're such a great connector, and so like you do have really big vision, and so I'm like, hey, I'm just here for, but that I really like that. It does feel like an engine. It really does.
Yeah, that's my vision for it. That it's a touch point place. I encourage anyone who's interested to go to our website and learn more and reach out to. One or both of us will answer questions. Thank you for being here.
Alrighty.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you are looking for more information about the Jumping Bean Magic Collective, please visit us at our website, www.jumpingbeanmagiccollective.com. There, you can become a member, reach out with questions, or become a design client. You may also find us on Instagram and Threads. If you enjoyed listening, please rate the show. See you next time.